Yeah, so let's talk about institutions, because you're saying we should not blame the institutions. I have an example, and please tell me why you think, that person per se is not victimized. So let's start with the beginning of a life. You're a baby, you were born into a really poor family, in a really poor community, where the school is not good, where crimes are high. You as a baby, I think, you're quite helpless there, and I would, according to my thinking, I would say that's quite unequal, and that is, I feel like that person, because if you think about education, that should be a public good. In my opinion, it should be provided equally in all communities instead of just based on how rich your house is. Could you respond to that?
So so if I'm getting your question straight, because there's a bit of an echo here. So you're suggesting that children grow up in unequal circumstances because of the school district they go to. Not all schools are equal. There are a lot of public schools that are garbage, and so kids don't have an equal access to success.
Yes, and I feel like in my world, in my political thinking, I think that is inequality, and that is institutions failing people. So
I agree with you that not all public schools are good, and I agree with you that there is such a thing as inequality. Of course there's such a thing as inequality. We're not all born in the same place. We're not all born equally intelligent. We're not all born with equal gifts. Some of us are born smart but short and will never play in the NBA. We're not all born, this is just a truism. The question is there inequity? Right? Is there an equity that needs to be remedied? And the question then is, what's the best way to remedy that inequity? So when you say that there's inequality, is that because there are a bunch of rich people who are screwing those poor kids out of a good school? I don't think so, because we're spending oodles of money in the public schools, particularly in poor areas, and it's not paying off very well. What I would suggest is that the best possible solution is to devolve those dollars back to parents who presumably care about those kids more than the public school system does, and allow them to choose the schools for their children. So I can agree with you that there's inequality. Then the question becomes, okay, how do we solve that problem? So again, inequality and inequity are not the same thing, and equating the two, I think, is a mistake. You can do a follow-up, that's fine.
Thank you. So I feel like, if we're getting really scholarly and academic here, that is exactly what Rousseau is saying, essentially talking about natural inequality and contrived inequality. Natural inequality would be inequality that you're saying, inequity would be the contrived one. And I feel like now in our society, the institutions is contributing to the ultimate contrived inequality, in the sense that children just do not have access to the same level of education. Granted, if they
if we're going to construct utopia and then suggest all children are going to have the same level of education, that's just not reality. Okay, there's no place on earth that has that, because that's just not the case. So you're right that there's a difference between difference in smarts and difference in the poverty situation in which you grew up. But the truth is that the biggest inequality the biggest inequity and inequality, I would say, is parents who decide to get pregnant out of wedlock. I mean, if you want to look at academic underperformance, it has much less to do with the school that you go to and much more to do with your family situation at home. Again, I'm not arguing with you that any of these things are a problem. The question is, quote unquote, who's to blame? And I think this is where we get into a problem in politics, because the idea is that the person to blame must be the rich guy down the street. I don't think it's the rich guy's fault. I think that there are certain things in life that just aren't fair. And then the question becomes, okay, how do we maximize opportunity without invading the rights of somebody else? And I think the easiest way to do that is to let people keep more of their own money and to do more to privatize the school system and give people more choice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.